So that's the great secret for me about doubt. Doubt conceals truth, but it's a journey, into the doubt. So you have to face it. You have to face all your own doubts, and then truth gradually starts to populate the cells of your body. More and more cells are resonating with truth, and less cells are filled with doubt.
Hello, I'm Sandie Sedgebeer, founder of the No B.S Spiritual Book Club and host of 3 live streaming radio shows and podcasts, all of which allow me to live my purpose and my passion for shifting perceptions about who we are, where we come from, and our place and role in the universe. This episode features international teacher, mystic and poet Richard Rudd, who is the founder of the Gene Keys, a truly fascinating, sacred teaching of universal wisdom that's embedded within the structure of our human DNA and enables any one of us to uncover our life purpose. Enjoy.
I'm the founder of a system called the Gene Keys, and so that's been a deep part of my purpose. But also, purpose is a multi-leveled thing. So I'm also a father and a husband and a family man. So that's also a deep part of my purpose. And those two, my working life and my family life, are a deep part of my purpose. But I go even deeper than the things I do, because for me, purpose is more about a state of being. It's a state of presence. And so in my teachings, the Gene Keys, which guide people towards their purpose, it's usually guiding us into a state of being, some state of compassion, or there's often words of the Gene Keys. My particular word is about timelessness. So my highest purpose, which is another way I often phrase it, highest purpose, is really to hold as best I can and embody a state of timelessness, and that means that I have to learn the great art of patience in life, and that becomes one of my great teachers, and it always has been, and deep relaxation. So from that point of view, my purpose is, multi-leveled. The road that led to me discovering my purpose probably began with a big mystical experience I had in my late 20s, where previous to that experience, I was just kind of drifting about in the world and interested in lots of different things. But then I had this big event that lasted for 3 days. It was a spontaneous event, and it put me in touch with a kind of much more cosmic intelligence at the core of the universe. And it gave me a completely holistic view of reality, a new view of your reality. And so that started the journey towards my true purpose, my higher purpose, that event. And then it was a struggle at many points along the way, because when you're in one of those heightened states of consciousness, especially for a long period of time, which I would say 3 days and 3 nights is actually quite a long period of time to be in that state. And I'm kind of in awe of people that live in that state. Haven't met very many of them. But for me, it was about having a taste of it and then creating a journey towards it by walking that journey myself. And I'm still doing that. And so my teachings, called the Gene Keys, are a part of that journey, and they're still unfolding. And so in a way, my purpose is still unfolding. But it is this sense of, underneath what we actually do in the world is this sense of kind of dwelling in that timeless reality of, deep love and, universal love, I guess you could say. So yeah, it's been a long journey with many interesting twists and turns and learnings and fallings and back to like this state of more universal intelligence. Yeah, I've had many moments of doubt. A friend of mine, who's a mentor actually of mine, very wise lady, told me recently that founders generally live in 80% doubt for the whole of their life. And I very much resonate with that, because you're the beginning of something, and it's usually something that's emerging in the world constantly, and it's often changeable and changing, and it changes you. And that's been my journey. And so I've had a huge amount of doubt, self-doubt, about is this for real? Am I for real? Am I being authentic? Times, especially when I've been less than, what I would consider, in integrity, I've learned the fastest. And the times of deep self-doubt, but that doubt, as in all the Gene Keys teachings, every shadow contains a gift. So for me, and that doubt is actually a deep part of one of my keys, and that doubt leads to inquiry. So it's gift. The gift of doubt is inquiry. It takes you on a journey of looking in deeper. Unless you're avoiding it, which many people are, they just try and avoid it because they don't want to go there. But if you look into the doubt, there's some magic there, because it takes you on this inner journey of like inquiring, well, who am I anyway? What is this doubt? It's just little aspects of my old self that have not fallen away yet, and so there's an illusion to it as well, and that my experience is there's actually an end to it. But it's a finite thing. Like these shadows, these states like doubt are actually finite. So there is actually because when you enter into that heightened state, there's no doubt there. There's only cellular certainty of who you are and what you are. And so doubt is a kind of process of alchemy, in a way, where the doubt eventually gives way to truth. And truth is what's, so that's the great secret for me about doubt. Doubt conceals truth, but it's a journey, into the doubt. So you have to face it. You have to face all your own doubts. And then truth gradually starts to populate the cells of your body. More and more cells are resonating with truth, and less cells are filled with doubt. And I think that's the same for everyone in a way. But yet you have to have the courage to go on that journey of self-inquiry to find out, well, what is this? Who am I? So what triggers the cellular certainty? That kind of memory of who we truly are without filters, I guess. It can be many things. I mean, the most mystical answer to that, which I feel has some truth to it, is nothing triggers it. It's an acausal event. It comes through grace. And what we can do is we can create the conditions for that event to occur more often in our lives. And that's what the great contemplative paths or teachings are attempting to do. They're attempting to create conditions, space, so meditation is a classic one. You create space for that truth to begin to emerge and reveal itself from inside you. And the Gene Keys, my teaching, is also the same. They create, through the art of contemplation, a sense of spaciousness around us through regular pausing in our everyday life. And those pauses, as we create more and more of them, and we learn to really drop into them and luxuriate in them, those pauses, which, they don't have to be still either. They can be moving pauses, so they have dimensions to them. But what a pause has is a sense of space to it. And in that space and that time that you create for a pause, there's a chance, that one of those events, one of those epiphanies, one of those memories, one of those breakthroughs will occur. So the more of those spaces we create in our lives, the more chance there is of those pivotal moments to kind of explode inside, detonate inside us. But I don't think you can make them happen. But that's my approach. I think you only can create the conditions, and then that are the best conditions, and then you allow them to spontaneously happen. But the mystery of life is that you don't know when it's going to happen. You don't know when the mystery of grace will enter you and remind you of who and what you truly are. But I love that. I love the fact that we can't know. There's got to be something we can't control. There's got to be something that's beyond the technique, because we're all obsessed with like techniques of like, here's how you get there. But this is one area where no technique gets you there. I think one of the great challenges for me has been integrating the spiritual and the mundane. I don't want to call it the mundane, that's not a very nice word, but the everyday life of my family life, and the mystical experiences that I have had and that I would like to have more of. And that, in the early days, of a spiritual path for many people, there's this sense of trying to escape the everyday to go up onto the mountain and have those great experiences. And so we go off on retreats and we go into isolation, or we go and do plant medicine and take ayahuasca and all these things that give us the high, the hit. But then we got to come back to money, mortgages, relationships, broken, stuff, a mess often. And so my biggest challenge is integrating those two. But I've made that my purpose. That is my purpose. That's part of my life's work, is bringing the mystical deeply into the mundane. Because one day I just sort of thought, if I don't manage to do this, I'm never going to be happy or fulfilled, because I can't escape the mundane. And so my great task, and I'm doing a lot better at it nowadays, has been, bringing, the pausing really helps, because in all the things that you have to do in your everyday material life, if you create these little magical pockets of pausing, populating that life, you have the mystical in the mundane, and it starts to saturate the mundane, and then the mundane becomes mystical. So the great epiphany for me is that they're not separate, and they never have been, but there's a part of me that was divided early on, and slowly those two halves of me and my life have started to come together. It's a very lovely feeling. So what effect has living deeply in my purpose had on the people around me? I think it's, again, different levels. Like, there's people further out, like people who I don't know and I don't meet, who listen to my words or my videos or my books and read things like that. It has quite a big impact on quite a lot of people. My sense of grounding into my purpose, because part of my purpose is to help people find purpose, find their purpose. So in that sense, I get quite a bit of good feedback that it's really helping people. But then if I come a bit closer in to like my personal life, my friendships, which are not all mystical, and sort of like that, some of them are quite ordinary and grounded in the realities of everyday life, I think it's less clear. I think I have a sense of stability to me and peacefulness generally, although my wife might say, oh, I don't know about that. But those who are closest to you, they're the ones often that test the stableness of your the stability of your purpose the most. Your children, and so my children, I think, don't pay much attention to what I do, but my sense of being in a flow with my life creates a nice atmosphere, I'd say, generally inside, because I'm generally fulfilled and happy. And I think that is what has an impact more than anything. Like, this person has found just happiness. And there are many others who I know who've found it without any teachings. But I think it does have a powerful impact on others, especially if someone is suffering, or is anxious, or, you know, caught in a trauma, or, you know, in an addictive pattern of some form, or depression, then when someone comes and they're living their purpose, then it has a kind of, it can remind people that there is another way, and that there is, you know, it's a bit of a journey, and it can be an encouragement to them to take that journey, and that there's hope. So I hope that for some people I bring a sense of hope. I think I probably do. Well, I think if someone hasn't found their purpose and they're interested and they really are hungry to kind of feel that sense of inner purpose and passion, I would invite them to learn about the art of contemplation, a contemplative way, you know, and to start creating these spaces in their life so that what's hidden inside them can emerge. And this is the opposite to what most people do, is that because we think that if there's something we want, we have to go and find it out there. And this is the opposite. To find one's purpose, really, it has to emerge from in here. It's part of our wisdom. It's part of what's our essence or our soul. And so we have to slow down. So I would invite people, you know, who are interested in this journey to kind of find out more about that contemplative way, and to slow down and find these spaces, these pauses, and they can be very short. That's the beauty of it. Like, that's the simplicity, and the good news in a way is that, you know, I mean, I have this little app called the Triple Flame app. It's out in the App Store, and it just dings you on your phone every 3 hours for 3 minutes on the 3, 6, 9, 12 of the clock. And only 3 minutes do you have to pause every 3 hours. It's not very often. But in the beginning, you know, taking those pauses becomes a little discipline, you know, and to do it a day after day after day. But soon you start to create that space where what's hidden inside you, this deep sense of being, of purpose, can start to reveal itself, can start to reveal its mystery. And it might do that in all kinds of ways. It might kind of, you know, in one of those spaces, you might suddenly think, you know, I've always wanted to learn the piano. Why have I never done it? You know, there's 1,000 reasons that you may not have done it. And then suddenly in that space of one of those pauses, you have this pivotal experience of like, I'm going to do it. I'm actually going to do it. But if you hadn't taken, I don't know, 50 pauses that month, you wouldn't have got to that one pause where that realization arrived. So you have to create these spaces, I would say. And I really invite people to kind of begin that practice and see the magic start to come. But you have to be a little bit persistent and a little bit patient because you don't know in which pause it happens. And in the beginning, it's 3 minutes. But as you start to enjoy them more, you might extend them, you know, because you might realize, yeah, and then you might just leave. You might not need the app anymore. You might just start to find that you're just taking them anyway because they're joyful. And you can take them in lots of different ways. So you can go for a walk, that can be a pause. You can have a lovely dialogue, it can be a pause with someone, you know, but you'd have to be a pause, you have to stop doing something else and then start doing something where you're much more present. So pausing is about bringing your presence to something, and it's usually very joyful. Although sometimes when you do open up that space, you also become aware of, you know, difficulties or pains inside you, or discomfort or unease or anxiety. But it's much better to know more about those things than to have them repressed and not known. So there's a little bit of courage also in this contemplative path. So yeah, but it's very, very simple. It's a very simple way. You know, I moved through, like many of us, I moved through many methods in my search for purpose. My early methods were from the East, you know, the meditation practices, Tantra and Tao. The Tao, I studied with several Taoist teachers, Taoist masters from, you know, from the Far East. And those were kind of building blocks for me. And then I became interested in the I Ching and human design. They were key components of my journey. But I just kept on expanding and wanting to stretch and go further, and that's why eventually I created my own way, which is the Gene Keys, because I wanted to track my own way, and I thought if I track it, if I create a system around it, then it might be helpful for others as well. And I have that kind of a brain and mind, and so I'm still doing that. I'm still tracking my own way, and it's still expanding into new and new vistas of, higher and higher consciousness or higher and higher frequency. So, and Gene Keys has incorporated many other systems in it. And, the Kabbalah was part of it. The chakras was part of it. Human design, as I mentioned. The different teachings that I've studied and teachers I've studied with, and indigenous teachings, and it's all in there. Anyone who wants to kind of get their head into this book and then my other books, they'll find all these strands that I've woven into the synthesis. It's a synthesis, Gene Keys. So my journey's been very wide in terms of assimilating mythic threads and then weaving them into a new form of tapestry that could be helpful for people. Astrology is another one, although I never trained in astrology, but it was a vital component that came from studying human design. So that was another element. But there's so many elements and new ones coming all the time, so yeah, it's been a long and twisting journey. I think when we go back to our childhood, we do find that there are clues about what we're here to do and our true purpose. But as I said earlier, it's like our true purpose is really a sense of presence and being. And that was there when we were a child, when we were a very young child. I say is like what we're here to do can change, but who we truly are, that deep purpose, that deep quality of our soul's essence, that never changes. So it's been there from the moment we arrived. And we've probably, the layers of wounding, trauma, forgetting through our childhood and our schooling, our education, our systems, they tend to erode that sense of pure being from our childhood. So recapturing aspects of our childhood or going on a journey into what happened and trying to remember how it was and looking for clues can be a wonderful dance, to go and see. I guess for me, like I had moments as a boy, I had great joy as a boy. I remember being a real show-off, actually. My mum was saying, stop showing off, how mums can do that to young, boisterous boys. And actually, I ended up being a bit of a show-off in the world. But it was part of like, I think I was in training for like, lots of people might end up looking at me. So I might as well start getting used to it. And just spreading that joy and that passion is part of everyone's purpose. But we all do it in different ways and different styles. But yeah, I think going back, I think our purpose is actually deeply hidden in our DNA. It's actually in our body, and that's why my teaching, the Gene Keys, are all about reawakening that hidden gem in our DNA that is our purpose. Yeah, so it's what I've ended up doing. The only real purpose for existence is to shine our light, and it doesn't matter what we do at one level. It's how we do whatever we do. So wherever you are in the great hierarchy and chain of beings, whether you could have a very humble, simple life, and you could be fulfilling the deepest purpose of anyone, or you could be a great, statesperson and having a powerful impact, or taking on justice. And sometimes also, and this may be a bit controversial, people come in for short bursts of time. Souls come in, and their purpose is to shine that light just for a burst and then leave. And but that burst has such a profound effect often on the people that they leave behind. And so that becomes like a purpose of that soul at that time, even though it's really hard often for those who are left behind, and we're trying to work out what to do about that. But often, you know, you hear those stories of someone that passes on and they die of some kind of disease, but then the parents or the friends then kind of in their name create something powerful and beautiful and healing. And you can see, like, we have these different layers to our purpose. And so it really is about just shining as much light as you possibly can while you're here. And that can take so many forms. It doesn't have to be a big kind of impact on the world. You don't need to be on social media to do that. You don't need, you know, it doesn't have to be that way. It can be as tiny as being a gardener, or working with the land, or with your hands, or with a craft, or some art form, or music. You know, it can be just music. You know, the musicians have always been like, there've always been so many musicians among us, and their joy is just to share their music. And it's a metaphor for purpose, for everyone to share their light, to share our music. And so, yeah, that's all that's needed. If you can create more joy, if you can create more inspiration, if you can, you know, create more love, there's nothing more anyone can do in this universe. Well, if the majority of people were living their purpose, the world would have a coherence. I could even say the world will have a coherence that we can barely imagine at the moment, because true purpose is rooted in this unconditional love. It's rooted in silence. It's rooted in truth. It's rooted in fundamental universal principles that are common to all life forms. So when you're really anchored in your purpose, for everyone to be anchored in their purpose, what you have is this, it's basically, it would be like looking at the sun. Looking at the earth would be more like looking at the sun. You'd just see this incredible flame of multitudinous beings, all interconnected, all kind of helping each other with different layers of genius to fulfill this collective purpose, you know, that actually is an even greater purpose. And so in a way, that is our final destiny, to find our collective purpose, which could be actually something really beautiful and simple. You know, it could be just to be here in our light and to take care of each other and the earth and to be really good stewards, you know, but in all our colorful ways, you know. So you're going to have mischievous deity people, and you're going to have, you know, you're going to have deeply caring, healing deity people, and then you're going to have all these different expressions of, in Gene Keys we call them the siddhis, our highest attributes that are hidden in our DNA, these superpowers that are latent inside human beings, that are still dormant for the majority of us. And so when those start to come online, then we get to see a much higher purpose that humanity might become, you know, take a greater seat in the cosmos, you know. So we may become as a higher being, and so we may become like an angel, like or an archangel, you know, like, so humanity, all the network of humanity could actually be like a part of an angel, you know, of an angelic being so great. And ultimately, I think we all are destined to become stars. You know, when you look at the stars in the heaven, I've always felt really we're looking at beings that have perfected their destiny, and they could even be whole chains of beings that have perfected their destiny as a star, you know. And then and so we're looking at them, and that's our encouragement. Like, we will one day become one of those stars. I think humanity will one day become a star, you know. And so I think that's a kind of magical thought, maybe to hold.